Should I rent or should I buy? If you look online, the advice is completely extreme. One side yells renting is throwing your money away, and the other side says house is a terrible investment. The truth, it is not that simple. I'm Hamish. Before I became a real estate agent here in New Brunswick, I spent over a decade working in banking, credit, and finance. My job is not just help you to buy a house. My job is to help you make a confident financial decision and absolute clarity and peace of mind. Stick with me end of this video because I'm going to break down the true hidden cost of owning a property. I'm going to give you a simple mathematical rule to determine exactly when renting beats buying, and then we are going to throw the calculator out the window and talk about the real life emotional reasons why people choose one over other. I will also be sharing the exact guidance I give to my buyer behind closed doors, showing you how to align your money with the life you actually want to live so you never end up trapped in the wrong investment. Let's talk about the money. There is a massive myth in real estate that your monthly mortgage payment is the true cost of owning a home. It's not. A huge chunk of that payment goes straight toward your principal. That isn't a cost, that's just a forced saving account. A true cost of owning a home is what we call unrecoverable cost. When you rent, your unrecoverable cost is obvious, it's your rent. That money leaves your bank account and never comes back. But buying has unrecoverable costs too. If you want to know the real cost of owning a property, there are four main ones you need to know about. The first one is property taxes. If you look at property tax rates across Canada, New Brunswick sits right at the absolutely top, averaging around 1.58%. Now, this high percentage wasn't too painful before 2020, when you could buy a nice detached home here for the price of a decent pickup truck. But now that our property values have completely exploded, yeah, paying highest tax rate in the country on a 400,000 assessment is a completely different, very painful story. But I could rant about our provincial tax system all day, and we'll save that for another video. Let's keep moving regardless of how we feel about it. That 1.8% is an unrecoverable cost you must account for. Second is home maintenance. When you rent, a broken water heater is your landlord's problem. When you buy, it's yours. In finance, we use the 1% rule for maintenance. You should expect to spend roughly 1% of your home's value every single year just on upkeep. On a 400,000 home, that is $4,000 a year. You might not spend that every year, but eventually the roof will need replacing, the furnace will die, or the deck will rot. That 1% is the invisible cost you pay just to keep the rain out and the lights on. The third one is mortgage interest. Let's say you buy a 400,000 home. A lot of people think a 4% mortgage means you are throwing away 4% of the house value every year. That's a myth too. Mortgages are front loaded. You pay a massive amount of interest in year 1 and very little by year 25. Averaged out over the life of a loan, your unrecoverable interest is roughly 1.8% of the home's value per year. The fourth one is opportunity cost. This is one that almost everyone misses. Let's say you put in $80,000 down payment on that house. That cash is now trapped in the drywall. To figure out what that trapped cash is actually costing you, we can't just guess. Let's look at the hard data. I have put on the screen on the left, you see actual compounded growth is 5.4%. I pulled this directly from Canadian Real Estate Association. This is not a national average. This is the exact 25-year historical growth rate specifically for detached home right here in New Brunswick. I use detached home because if you're spending $400,000 here, you're likely buying a house with a yard, not a condo. So this is your real world growth. On the right, you see actual compounded growth of 6.8%. I pulled this from S&P Global. This is the 25-year historical analyzed return of the stock market. Why 25 years? Because that is the lifespan of your mortgage. If you buy the house, your 80,000 down payment grows at 5.4%. If you keep renting and invest that same $80,000 in the stock market, it historically grows at 6.8%. That precise 1.4% gap in compounding growth that you miss out on by tying your cash into a house instead of the market. That is your opportunity cost, and it is a cost you must factor in. Now try to calculate those four unrecoverable costs for every house you look at is exhausting. So I'm going to give you a shortcut. Based on our exact local math here in New Brunswick, 1.8% for taxes, 1% for maintenance, 1.8% for the interest, and 1.4% opportunity cost. I call this a 5.78% rule. Here is how you use it. Take the price of the home you want, let's stick with that $400,000 example, and multiply it by 5.78%. That gives you $23,120 a year in true unrecoverable cost. Divided that by 12 and you get roughly $1,927 a month. That $1,927 is your magic break even number. If you can rent a similar home for a less than $1,927 a month and you actually invest that money you save, renting wins financially. But here is the honest truth. If you made every major life decision based entirely on a spreadsheet, none of us will ever get married and we certainly wouldn't have kids, right? Real estate is exactly the same. The numbers matters, but they are only half the equation. The other half is your life. So let's step away from the calculator. Here's how I actually advise my clients. Let's talk about when buying usually makes sense. Even the math looks close. If you want forced saving, a mortgage act like a built-in saving plan. Every payment builds equity, whether you feel motivated to save that month or not. For real people with busy lives, this is huge. If you want protection from rising costs, rent rises forever. A fixed rate mortgage does not. Over time, inflation actually works in favor of homeowners by melting away the real cost of your debt. If you plan to stay long term, if you plan to stay in the same home or the city for 5 or more years, buying start to heavenly tilt the odds in your favor. Time smooths out market cycle and that front loaded interest. If you value stability and control, no renovations, no sudden rent hikes, no asking permission to paint a wall or get a dog, that emotional return is very real, even it doesn't show up on a spreadsheet. On the flip side, here is when I advise client to rent, even if they could technically afford to buy a house. If you need flexibility, if you expect your job or lifestyle to change in the next 2 to 4 years, renting makes more sense. Short stay amplify the cost of buying and selling. If rent is drastically cheaper, if your rent is sitting way below that 5.78% rule we talked about earlier, renting wins on pure math. If you're highly disciplined with investing, renting is a brilliant wealth building strategy if you consistently invest the money you save not owing. And I mean actually investing it with discipline and conviction, not just planning to. If home ownership will hurt your lifestyle, some people lose sleep over unexpected roof repairs on property tax hike. If the stress of maintenance outweighs the pride of ownership for you, renting is not a failure, it's a very smart choice. At the end of the day, making a massive financial decision shouldn't be based on guess or generic rule of thumb. It requires what I call legacy thinking, aligning your money with the life actually you want to live. And that is exactly what I provide for my clients. We don't just look at houses, we look at the math, the opportunity cost, and your long term wealth. I help you structure the risk so you can buy with absolute confidence. If you're standing at this crossroad right now and you want this level of analysis done on your specific number, reach me out, send me a message, or book a time with me. Let's figure out right path for you together. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.